It's time for Clemson Sports Talk with Lawton Swan.
Ready, set!
Just call me Swanee.
Tiger style. Tiger style.
Finally, Clemson Sports Talk has come back to Drive Time. Hello, everybody. Lawton Swan back in the saddle once again. It is the show that shakes the Southland. Clemson Sports Talk for you each and every afternoon as you make your way around the great state of South Carolina and beyond, listening to us on spectacular radio stations like Fox Sports Radio 1400 the Midlands, heard around the world on the iHeart Radio application. A tough weekend for Clemson Tiger basketball as they fall on the road at Louisville. The Cardinals were in the midst of a 7-game losing streak, their longest since, I believe, World War II. Clemson now with a 6-game losing streak after falling 70-61 over the weekend. Perhaps the biggest part of that story, however, not Clemson's loss on the court, but their loss in terms of P.J. Hall in that ball game, which we'll see. We'll hear from Brad Brownell in just a little bit. After the game, he did not know. He did have an update today on P.J. Hall, and we'll hear all of that on the program as well. Plus, this past weekend, the Clemson Tiger softball team picking up their first ever top 5 victory, knocking off the Washington Huskies down at the St. Pete Clearwater Elite Invitational, I believe was the name of the tournament that they took place in or participated in this weekend. And then, of course, the Clemson Tiger baseball team with a 3-game series sweep of the Indiana Hoosiers, including a 19-run performance on Saturday, scoring 19 unanswered after falling behind 4-0 early. And then yesterday, Clemson coming away with a walk-off sacrifice fly from Briar Hawkins, giving Clemson a 5-4 win in 10 innings. So a good start to the baseball season for the Clemson Tigers, a good start to the softball team. I know they lost to both Wisconsin and Northwestern. We'll update you on all of that later on in the program, but their first ever top 5 victory, first ever top 10 victory, technically as well, I believe. But kudos to John Rittman and that ball club. Those ladies, man, played phenomenally. And in that game against in that game against Washington, as you can imagine, in the circle, it was the incredible Valerie Cagle, and up 1-0 in the bottom of the 6th inning, she went yard to give herself a little extra space to give the Tigers a little 2-0 lead, and they end up coming away with the victory. So we'll talk about a lot more here on that show. We'll talk about a lot more here on the show on that front. Also, we do have the schedule for Clemson's practices for the spring. They'll be beginning shortly, and we'll talk a little Clemson Tiger football here as well. Plus, DJ ooh-wee Ungalale looking a little more ooh-wee than before. It's not live. It's not live action. He's not on the gridiron with a helmet on. But we've talked to you about the fact that he's trying to drop some LBs. He looks like he has achieved that goal. I don't know where he wants to be. I'd love to see this kid playing around 210, to be honest with you, maybe 220 at the max. But he's always been much bigger than that. We'll see where they get him to by the time foot meets ball in the fall up in Tigertown. And could his weight be a catalyst to better football play for DJ? But again, for the Clemson Tigers, Saturday, look, I know you don't want an excuse, and you don't tune into this show to hear excuses, and you're never going to get excuses. But it was not lost on me that P.J. Hall was injured in the first minute of action, just after just over a minute into the game, due to a left foot injury, and one in which is the same foot that has been bothering him all year. We've talked about the fact that he's been in a walking boot for 90% of the week, outside of playing, he's mostly in a boot. He's practicing just a little bit. But when you lose that guy, and he is absolutely your star, and you've already lost Hunter Tyson. I mean, those are the two most significant big men that you've got on the roster. And P.J. Hall is a catalyst to success for this Clemson Tiger basketball team. And without him, as they say, it is a tough row to hoe. The Tigers will be back on the court Wednesday as they host Wake Forest, a surprising Wake Forest team under Coach Steve Forbes. 7 o'clock tip-off on the ACC network. Again, that is Wednesday at Little John Coliseum. 803-450-0086. Text line and phone line. If you want to be a part of the program, that's the way you can do it. You can text us anytime, any place, anywhere. And it was Alamir Dawes. It was Alamir Dawes for Clemson this past weekend, who did about as much as he could to try to carry the load for this Clemson Tiger team. I think he hit 6 3-pointers in the contest, tying his career high. He scored 18 points in the game. And Clemson was actually, I think, with about 5 minutes and 15 seconds remaining after Alamir Dawes hit a 3-pointer. Clemson had the game. It was a 1-point ball game with 5 minutes and 15 seconds left. And Clemson would go on a bit of a scoring drought there in the waning moments of the game, but they made it competitive throughout the second half from about the 10-minute mark through about the 5-minute mark. Clemson had their chances, but were unable to come away with a victory. And again, if they had P.J. Hall, if they had Hunter Tyson, maybe it's a different story today. But I do not make excuses. This team you got to be built with depth. You got to be built better than Clemson is currently built to withstand losing a guy like P.J. Hall, losing a guy like Hunter Tyson. And look, would Olivier Maxence Prosper have been a help for Clemson in the absence of Hunter Tyson? Probably so. Would Lynn Kidd, who has not played much for Virginia Tech, would Lynn Kidd have been helpful? Instead, Clemson had to play Middlebrooks, who I think's 14 minutes that Ben Middlebrooks played is the career high in terms of minutes for him in a ball game. Could you have, would you have had better depth if those guys were still on your roster? Yes, there is no doubt about it. But when the Tigers lose their star a minute in, rest assured it was going to be tough sledding for Clemson the rest of the way. Chase Hunter scored 10 points in the game. Naz Bohannon scored 11, and then Alamir Dawes led all scores for Clemson, shooting 6 of 10 from the three-point arc, 6 of 11 total from the field for 18 points. Again, I don't know what's happened to Nick Honor. I know size is an issue for Honor, for Honor, even more so than Dawes. But Honor in 16 minutes of basketball action, just 1 of 5 from the floor, just 2 points. Even David Collins, just 2 of 6, 4 points. I mean, Clemson starters minus Chase Hunter. And again, if you include P.J. Hall's 2, Shiflin scored 7, Honor scored 2, Collins scored 4. I mean, that's a grand total of 15 points scored by 4 of your 5 starters. That's not gonna cut the mustard against a lot of people, quite frankly. 803-450-0086. Here's Brad Brownell's comments following Clemson's 70-61 loss on Saturday to a Louisville team that, again, was riding a 7-game losing streak coming into the matchup.
Really proud of the effort my team gave tonight. Thought we competed exceptionally hard and got the game late into the second half with a chance. Disappointed that we weren't able to take it to the last minute. We needed to be able to get a couple more stops in the second half, and needed to make a couple more plays. But I thought our guys played pretty aggressive. I thought we played pretty confidently, and I thought our team adjusted well to obviously losing PJ in the first minute. That was, troubling. But like I told our guys, we're all on scholarship. We got to be able to overcome it, and we got to still put ourselves in a chance to win the game. We're good enough to do that. And so I was a little disappointed that, we didn't make the plays in the second half to do that down the stretch. Give Louisville credit. I thought their kids made some big shots under some pressure in the second half. And again, I'm really proud of our group. I thought our guys battled and fought. We're a little undersized compared to those guys, especially losing PJ. Our two freshmen got a lot of great time, and that was great experience for them. But again, disappointed. In terms of PJ, I don't know anything, so I can't really help you there in terms of what his situation is. Questions?
Brownell was asked about PJ Hall's injury and if he saw anything when it took place.
Yeah, he just landed on his foot. I mean, he kind of caught it on an awkward step, a little out of rhythm pass, probably maybe a little ill-advised. And he just didn't quite have his balance. And I think he just, kind of stepped a little awkwardly on that right foot, and he tweaked it or whatnot. So, we took him out, put some ice on it to see what it would feel like. But I told Brad, there's no reason to put him back in the game unless it's, I can't imagine he's going to feel better. So we just decided to shut him down.
Brownell was also asked if the injury was indeed similar to what he'd been dealing with all season.
Yes. Yeah. Periodically, he has a little hot spot there that flares up on him. And, if he steps in the wrong way or something every once in a while, it, kind of gives a grab, obviously. And, tonight it did.
803-450-0086 text line and phone line if you want to talk about your Clemson Tiger men's basketball team. Brownell was asked if there was anybody in particular on the lineup that he'd like to see step up, given the fact that a guy like PJ Hall went down.
Well, he's our number one option. There's no doubt about it. But we've got other guys that it kind of depends on a situation. We ran a couple different actions for a couple different players to exploit something. Al obviously had a nice game shooting the basketball. I thought Nas was great, gave us great energy, made some real good plays. Chase was good, attacking the basket at times. So a little bit of everybody. Obviously, there's more pressure and the ball goes into Ian's hands a lot because we're kind of running an offense where we move our five around and invert our five. There were one or two plays that I thought he could have made. I have a lot of confidence in Ian, and I thought he had a couple bad plays that were, problematic for us down the stretch. One was, I think we had a good back cut set up for a layup, and he didn't quite pivot and get square, and he threw it away. And but we're just kind of running our offense through a bunch of different guys. David Collins a couple times, and I thought he, when they loaded up to him, I thought he distributed well. So it's kind of a little bit of everybody.
Brownell was also asked about the possibility that PJ Hall could be out for an extended period of time and what that would mean for the lineup moving forward, whether or not it would be Nas Bohannon who slid in and gets the start.
We'll have to look at it just game to game with matchups and whatnot. Is it, do we go, Ian and Nas? Do we go Ben and Nas, Ben and Ian? It may just depend on who we're playing and where we're at a little bit. Obviously, it's hard for us because, it's two front court players, right? Hunter and on PJ. And so now we're getting limited in there now. Like we obviously played David at the 4 spot some today just to play, rest our guys, and we got into some foul trouble there with Ian and Ben. So I think it would go game to game. We just have to wait and see with the matchups.
Brownell was also asked to update everybody on Hunter Tyson's injury and whether or not he might be back in time for the ACC tournament.
I do. He started doing a few things this week. I'm not ready to. I don't know really a lot about when it is. Is there a possibility he can get there for the last week of the regular season or ACC tournament? I know he's doing everything possible. He's living in the training room. He's doing stuff with Brad every single day, and he started doing some things on the court a little bit this week. This is all, I guess, 2 weeks away from the last week of the season. But if there's a guy that could get to that point, it would probably be him.
Again, following Clemson's 70-61 loss to Louisville, the Tigers return to action Wednesday evening, 7 o'clock. New tip-off time for that one against Wake Forest. And it will be, it feels like it's closing in on, must-win time. We've got a poll question up. I crossed over several years ago into the land of, I'll just wait and see what Clemson decides to do with Brad Brownell. I'm not going to try to be the voice of reason for getting rid of Coach Brownell. But call your shot over on our Kaufman's fan poll. If you don't know about our good friends over at Kaufman's Meat and Place in Lexington, go check them out ASAP. Fantastic cuts of choice beef. My wife and I went over there a couple of weeks ago, got some bacon wrap fillets. Big Daddy Swanee cooking it up right. I did get the old smoker, recently. Well, not old, but I got a smoker at the recommendation of Jonathan Reynolds, who used to be a host here at Fox Sports Radio, and he's kind of my guy. I call him up and I'll text him, say, Jonathan, how do I cook this? I got those meats from over there at Kaufman's Meat and Place. Did them up right. Let Alicia know we sent you. Again, call your shot over on our Kaufman's fan poll. Does Clemson make a head coaching change in basketball at the end of the season? Yes or no? Come over there and vote. Let us know what you think. We'd love to hear from you. Brand new poll. Just put it up recently. Also, again, we'll hear from Brad Brownell in just a little bit. Matter of fact, we'll hit a break and we'll come back with some more from Brad Brownell as he spoke today with the members of the ACC media as it pertains to the situation. A little update there on what's going on with PJ Hall. Also in the world of college basketball this weekend, do you remember, was that Thursday or Friday? I talked about Juwan Howard at Michigan and the kind of fun, lighthearted moment that took place as the ball was rolling down the court. I believe they were playing Iowa in that game, and he scooped it up and handed it to the player from Iowa, and everybody got a chuckle, and he was so apologetic about what happened. Well, this weekend, things seem to have escalated for the Michigan Wolverines. If you did not see this, after the Michigan-Wisconsin game, as the teams were in the handshaking line or whatever you want to call it, Juwan Howard and the head coach of Wisconsin, Greg Gard, sort of got into an argument, which led to some pushing and ultimately led to what appeared to be a punch at first. It was more of a slap. Juwan Howard slapping Wisconsin assistant coach Joe Krabenhoff in the side of the face. It didn't turn into a malice in the palace, if you will, but it was not a pretty sight in the Big Ten, and certainly a much more serious offense for Juwan Howard, and was really not a good moment. I have not seen any timetable on the suspension, how long it will be, some people have even called for him to be fired. Certainly if he hit another player on another team, he would be fired today. I don't have any doubt about that. That's the old Woody Hayes rule, I guess you might say. But as far as a coach hitting a coach, I've never seen it before. not out in public. And we'll see what happens with Juwan Howard for sure. With a break, we'll bounce back with more right after this. Stay with us. Rocking and rolling along with you on a Monday afternoon. Again, Brad Brownell and the Clemson Tigers falling at Louisville over the weekend. The ACC had their men's basketball press conference earlier today, or teleconference earlier today, and here's Brad Brownell giving a quick update on the situation with PJ Hall, plus sort of knowing that you're not going to make it into the NCAA tournament and, you know, the likelihood of any postseason play sort of vanishing. And how do you kind of keep the guys' heads in the game, so to speak?
Yeah, I don't have a lot of updates on PJ. The x-ray was negative, so that's good. He's still doing medical testing today in terms of availability for Wednesday. We'll have to wait and see. We were off yesterday, so no practicing or anything like that. So wait and see on that. Just coach like you always do. Our guys have good spirit. We brought them in for film this morning at 8 or 7:30. Watched film on the game at Louisville, tried to learn from it, you know, show the things we did well, show things we got to improve, just appeal to guys' competitive spirit about, you know, getting better and learning and trying to become a better player and better team. And you know, we've battled some in this stretch. It hasn't been easy. Certainly there's a bunch of games in a short amount of time, you know, but even the Louisville game, I don't know, it was 3 minutes to go, maybe 350 something. You know, we had a wide open three and a fast break. If we make the right pass, we have a layup to cut the game to, I think it was 4 or 3, you know, so we're within a possession in the last couple minutes. So, you know, our guys are competing hard. We're playing some decent basketball at times. We just haven't been quite good enough to win. Our margin for error is small right now. Obviously, without Hunter and PJ, it gets even smaller. But I think our guys are trying to give good effort and play the right way, and we just got to play a little bit better. We got to make a few more shots too. We've had some shots we got to make.
Brad Brownell was also asked about, given the fact that this Clemson team hasn't been, quote, playing terrible, what does he try to do to shake things up? I mean, they've had the issues with PJ Hall. They've got Hunter Tyson out. We know they had a suspension of David Collins for a ball game against Notre Dame. You know, has he tried to shake things up, so to speak, was the question from one of the members of the media.
You know, I'm just big on teaching. I'm big on teaching. You know, keep teaching, keep coaching, keep trying to educate your guys, keep trying to make them understand you believe in them, you believe in your team. We need to execute better. You know, we might need to compete and win we got to win a few more one-on-one matchups too. There are situations where we guard good action and, you know, it comes down to a one-on-one play. We got to stop our guy. So, you know, we haven't changed anything drastically. No, we haven't. Our practice habits are still good. I think we're spending a lot of time with our players. Our players' attitudes are good. Energy level is good. You know, want to is pretty good. Again, it's just when you're down a couple, it's hard. You can play well and not win. And, you know, so you just keep teaching, keep trying to make your guys believing and understanding and you know, hopefully the worm's going to turn.
Brownell was also asked about the matchup coming up against Wake Forest and the job that Steve Forbes has done revamping that roster in Winston-Salem.
Well, Steve's done a great job. They've got really good players, and they play unselfishly. Obviously, Williams and LaRavia, Walton, and even Monsanto, you went out and got 4 guys that are really good players in the transfer portal. Obviously, 2 of them, Williams and LaRavia, they look like pros. And when your best players are as unselfish and smart as they are, those guys, not only can they score and win their one-on-one matchups, but they make everybody else better. And they share the ball. And Steve has them playing in a good way. They're unselfish, and you know, they have great size. And that's a big factor. They're a big team, and they can play really big. We try to recruit Nadeem C. And, they play him at the 4 and Laravia at the 3, and now they're huge. And so they've got versatility. They got different ways to play. They can shoot. They pass it great. No surprise at all. I watched them a couple times early in the season in the non-conference, and I was like, man, they're going to be one of the better teams in this league. They've got experience, and they're playing the right way. Steve's doing a really good job with them.
When did you try to get C? Was that one of his transfers or originally?
Yeah, we tried in this last transfer.
Last cycle.
Again, Brad Brownell earlier today during his conference call with the media, he was also asked about whether or not there have been any conversations about the potential of shutting down P.J. Hall for the remainder of the season.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, we certainly have talked about it, but, he wants to play, so it's, and the doctors have said that, he's okay to play. We just, he doesn't need to play every day, right? He can't, the cumulative effect could give him more problems. And obviously there's always a chance that something can happen. But you don't just want to, I don't think it's been in a situation where we've just needed to just shut him down. He rarely practices. If things are good, he practices 30 minutes the day before a game. That's about it. Some games he doesn't, but we'll see. But certainly we've talked about all of it.
So there you go. Some quick insight into the Clemson Tiger men's basketball program as they prepare for their matchup against Wake Forest on Wednesday night. 803-450-0086 text line, phone line. Again, you can be a part of the show anytime, any place, anywhere, and you can get all of the information and interviews, etc., including the notes and stories on Clemson's sweep of the Indiana Hoosiers this weekend in baseball over on our website. Again, that's ClemsonSportsTalk.com. When we get back, we will hear from Coach Monty Lee, and hoping to get Coach Monty Lee on the program later in this week, plus our good buddy Brad Owens, the Director of Baseball Operations up in Clemson. Hope to get him on soon as well. But Monty Lee, we'll hear from him following Clemson's sweep over the Indiana Hoosiers yesterday with a 5-4 victory in 10 innings. We'll have some of that audio for you right here on the show that shakes the Southland. You're listening to Clemson Sports Talk on Fox Sports Radio 1400 and on the iHeartRadio app. It was a beautiful weekend up in Tiger Town as the Clemson Tiger baseball team opened up the 2022 campaign with a 3-game series sweep over the Indiana Hoosiers. The Tigers win game 1 9-0. The following day, however, the Hoosiers opened up with a quick 4-0 lead, only to see Clemson score, wait for it, 19 unanswered runs to win 19-4. And then yesterday, things would get tight, but late in the ball game, Clemson comes away with a 5-4 victory in 10 innings as Briar Hawkins delivers a sacrifice fly in the 9th inning to score Benjamin Blackwell for the walk-off run to give the Tigers a 5-4 win. Again, tomorrow they will take on the College of Charleston, Monty Lee's former team, at 4 o'clock. That game will be played on the ACC Network Extra package if you want to tune in and try to watch it. Here's Monty Lee following the 3-game sweep over Indiana.
Well, another tremendous crowd here today. It's just great to have our fans here and supporting the guys. Just an outstanding atmosphere, and you could certainly feel the crowd today in all those big moments, and we certainly had a lot of them throughout the course of the game, just a back-and-forth game. Very well-played game, I felt like, on both sides. Again, we did a good job. We spurred some balls up, had some tough luck. Billy Amick got robbed of a home run early in the ball game, and Caden hit a ball pretty hard, over the right fielder's head. He made a nice play, and Blake Wright smoked the ball to center field early in the game. And but I thought we did a good job against some tough arms today, again, of winning that free 90 battle. We took our walks, put ourselves in a position to score some runs, and it wasn't necessarily always pretty, but it was a very hard-fought game. It's great to see Briar Hawkins come up there with just a huge at-bat, to win the game for us. And our pitching staff, you look at, Lindley and Ryan Ammons struggled a little bit, but guys stepped up behind him. I thought the key in the game, quite honestly, was Olin Chuck and Jay Deal. And Jay Deal, just unbelievable to be a freshman. pitching on short rest, pitched yesterday, just in high leverage situations for him to be able to pitch the way that he did. Says a lot about him, and Caden did an outstanding job coming in for his first outing of the year. So I thought that was the difference in the game. With the game being tied like that, and us having the last at bat, we had to keep it tied, and our bullpen was going to have to do a great job. And those guys at the end, Olin, Chuck, Dill, and Grice, they were just outstanding, and it was just a great way to win the game. Walk off fashion, extra innings. That's good for your club. It's going to give them confidence going into those situations. As we move forward. So it's great to have a game like that.
That again, the comments from Monty Lee following Clemson's series victory. Again, it was Briar Hawkins' sacrifice fly with 1 out in the 10th inning. They gave Clemson the 5-4 victory. The Tigers sweep, moving to 3-0 on the season. The Hoosiers. I never realized how hard it was to say Hoosiers until today. And I've nearly flubbed that word 3 times and even struggled to say the word season with the word Hoosiers coming up right behind it. Clemson's next game, again, will be tomorrow at 4 o'clock. So right as we go on the air here, the Tigers will be taking to the bump to take on the College of Charleston there in beautiful Doug Kingsmore Stadium. Clemson leads the all-time series against the Cougars 29-4. The record at Clemson all-time 20-4. Clemson will pitch Billy Barlow, the righty. He'll be going up against the right-handed pitcher Trey Pusser from Coastal Carolina. Clemson is averaging 11 runs per game through the first 3 games of the season, batting .284 with a .402 slugging percentage and a .490 on-base percentage. Clemson's pitching staff currently has a 2.57 ERA after the weekend, allowing just 184 opponent batting average and a 1.94 strikeout to walk ratio currently for Clemson. The College of Charleston enters the contest tomorrow after a sweep of Wagner. They have yet to play on the road this year, so obviously this will be their first road game of the season under fifth-year head coach Chad Holbrook, the former South Carolina Gamecock skipper. The Cougars are batting .340 with a 3.0 ERA. And JT Marr is currently hitting .583 with a homer, 2 doubles, 3 RBIs, 2 steals, and a partridge in a pear tree for the College of Charleston. Clemson and Charleston will conclude their series this year on May 10th as the 2 teams will meet in the Midlands over at Segra Park, home of the Columbia Fireflies. Monty Lee, of course, was the head coach at the College of Charleston from 2009 to 2015. After playing for them from 1996 to 1999. So it's safe to say that this is a little bit of a homecoming for everybody involved, a homecoming for Monty Lee taking on his former institution, and a bit of a homecoming for Chad Holbrook as he will take on the team that was once his arch rival in the Clemson Tigers. Again, coming up this weekend, Clemson will take on Hartford in a 3-game series. All of those games will be on the ACC Network Extra Package, kicking it off on Friday at 4, Saturday at 3, and Sunday at 1. So the same schedule as this past weekend. Of course, weather permitting. 4, 3, and 1 will be the start times this weekend as Clemson will face Hartford. And then the Tigers are back at it a week from tomorrow against the Spartans from USC Upstate at 4 p.m. Tomorrow, however, another 4 p.m. start as Clemson will take on the undefeated 3-0 College of Charleston Cougars at Doug Kingsmore Stadium. 803-450-0086, 803-450-0086. Currently, Caden Grice leads the Tigers with a .500 batting average. He's got 6 hits in 12 at-bats, scoring 4 runs with a home run and 6 RBIs on the season to also lead the way for the Clemson Tigers at the plate. 803-450-0086. Text line, phone line. Again, the show that shakes the Southland rolling along on a Monday afternoon. I mentioned it earlier, the Clemson Tigers softball team with their first ever top 5 victory. If you want to say top 10 victory, you can. It was also a top 5 victory, as well as the Washington Huskies were ranked 5th in one of the major softball polls. John Rittman and the Lady Tiger softball team come away with a big victory down in Florida. We'll hear from Coach Rittman briefly right after this. Stay with us for more of the show that shakes the Southland. It was a beautiful weekend up in Tiger Town as the Clemson Tiger baseball team opened up the 2022 campaign with a 3-game series sweep over the Indiana Hoosiers. The Tigers win game 1 9-0. The following day, however, the Hoosiers opened up with a quick 4-0 lead, only to see Clemson score, wait for it, 19 unanswered runs to win 19-4. And then yesterday, things would get tight, but late in the ball game, Clemson comes away with a 5-4 victory in 10 innings as Briar Hawkins delivers a sacrifice fly in the 9th inning to score Benjamin Blackwell for the walk-off run to give the Tigers a 5-4 win. Again, tomorrow they will take on the College of Charleston, Monty Lee's former team, at 4 o'clock. That game will be played on the ACC Network Extra package if you want to tune in and try to watch it. Here's Monty Lee following the 3-game sweep over Indiana.
Well, another tremendous crowd here today. It's just great to have our fans here and supporting the guys. Just an outstanding atmosphere, and you could certainly feel the crowd today in all those big moments, and we certainly had a lot of them throughout the course of the game, just a back and forth game. Very well played game, I felt like, on both sides. Again, we did a good job. We squared some balls up, had some tough luck. Billy Amick got robbed of a home run early in the ball game, and Caden hit a ball pretty hard, over the right fielder's head. He made a nice play, and Blake Wright smoked the ball to center field early in the game. And but I thought we did a good job against some tough arms today, again, of winning that free 90 battle. We took our walks, put ourselves in a position to score some runs, and it wasn't necessarily always pretty, but it was a very hard-fought game. It's great to see Briar Hawkins come up there with just a huge at-bat, to win the game for us. And our pitching staff, you look at, Lindley and Ryan Ammons struggled a little bit, but got stepped up behind him. I thought the key in the game, quite honestly, was Olin Chuck and Jay Deal. And Jay Deal, just unbelievable to be a freshman, pitching on short rest, pitched yesterday, just in high leverage situations. For him to be able to pitch the way that he did says a lot about him. And Caden did an outstanding job coming in for, his first outing of the year. So I thought that was the difference in the game. With the game being tied like that, and us having the last at bat, we had to keep it tied, and our bullpen was going to have to do a great job. And those guys at the end, Olin, Chuck, Dill, and Grice, they were just outstanding. And it was just a great way to win the game. Walk off fashion, extra innings. That's good for your club. It's going to give them confidence going into those situations, as we move forward. So it's great to have a game like that.
That, again, the comments from Monty Lee following Clemson's series victory. Again, it was Briar Hawkins' sacrifice fly with 1 out in the 10th inning that gave Clemson the 5-4 victory. The Tigers sweep, moving to 3-0 on the season. The Hoosiers. I never realized how hard it was to say Hoosiers until today. And I've nearly flubbed that word 3 times and even struggled to say the word season with the word Hoosiers coming up right behind it. Clemson's next game, again, will be tomorrow at 4 o'clock. So right as we go on the air here, the Tigers will be taking to the bump to take on the College of Charleston there in beautiful Doug Kingsmore Stadium. Clemson leads the all-time series against the Cougars 29-4. The record at Clemson all-time 20-4. Clemson will pitch Billy Barlow, the righty. He'll be going up against the right-handed pitcher Trey Pusser from Coastal Carolina. Clemson is averaging 11 runs per game through the first 3 games of the season, batting .284 with a .402 slugging percentage and a .490 on-base percentage. Clemson's pitching staff currently has a 2.57 ERA after the weekend, allowing just 184 opponent batting average and a 1.94 strikeout to walk ratio currently for Clemson. The College of Charleston enters the contest tomorrow after a sweep of Wagner. They have yet to play on the road this year, so obviously this will be their first road game of the season under fifth-year head coach Chad Holbrook, the former South Carolina Gamecock skipper. The Cougars are batting .340 with a 3.0 ERA. And JT Marr is currently hitting .583 with a homer, 2 doubles, 3 RBIs, 2 steals, and a partridge in a pear tree for the College of Charleston. Clemson and Charleston will conclude their series this year on May 10th as the two teams will meet in the Midlands over at Segra Park, home of the Columbia Fireflies. Monty Lee, of course, was the head coach at the College of Charleston from 2009 to 2015 after playing for them from 1996 to 1999. So it's safe to say that this is a little bit of a homecoming for everybody involved, a homecoming for Monty Lee taking on his former institution, and a bit of a homecoming for Chad Holbrook as he will take on the team that was once his arch rival in the Clemson Tigers. Again, coming up this weekend, Clemson will take on Hartford in a 3-game series. All of those games will be on the ACC Network Extra Package, kicking it off on Friday at 4, Saturday at 3, and Sunday at 1. So the same schedule as this past weekend. Of course, weather permitting. 4, 3, and 1 will be the start times this weekend as Clemson will face Hartford. And then the Tigers are back at it a week from tomorrow against the Spartans from USC Upstate at 4 p.m. Tomorrow, however, another 4 p.m. start as Clemson will take on the undefeated 3-0 College of Charleston Cougars at Doug Kingsmore Stadium. 803-450-0086, 803-450-0086. Currently, Caden Grice leads the Tigers with a .500 batting average. He's got 6 hits in 12 at-bats, scoring 4 runs with a home run and 6 RBIs on the season to also lead the way for the Clemson Tigers at the plate. 803-450-0086. Text line, phone line. Again, the show that shakes the Southland rolling along on a Monday afternoon. I mentioned it earlier, the Clemson Tigers softball team with their first ever top 5 victory. If you want to say top 10 victory, you can. It was also a top 5 victory, as well as the Washington Huskies were ranked 5th in one of the major softball polls. John Rittman and the Lady Tiger softball team come away with a big victory down in Florida. We'll hear from Coach Rittman briefly right after this. Stay with us for more of the show that shakes the Southland. Final segment of hour number 1 coming up. Hopefully we'll be hooked up with our good buddy William Qualkenbush. Again, if you don't follow our YouTube channel, we'd love to have you do that. Over 700 people already subscribing to it, and we really have a goal to reach 1,000. I know without the live video rolling, it has been a bit of a frustration for me in terms of growing the audience as it was skyrocketing. I will tell you, as I mentioned last week, making moves on the setup, and I am so close. Like now it is down to literally camera positioning and moving forward on that front. And I think we might be set to go here in the next week or two, crossing my fingers that we can get rocking and rolling with the live video again on the show. 803-450-0086. Well, I'll tell you what, you don't need live video to know that the Clemson Tiger softball team is for real. In just a few short seasons, John Rittman, head coach of the softball team, has this program very well respected. It is in a league where you will get opportunities to face off against a couple of the top programs in the country, including Florida State, who's a perennial top 5 team, Virginia Tech, who's in the top 10 this year, Duke, who's in the top 15, Clemson's in the top 15. You've got plenty of opportunity out in front of you. And then add to that the fact that the Clemson softball team goes out and over the weekend plays in the St. Pete Clearwater Invitational, or what, I'll be honest, whatever the name of the whole shebang was, and beats a top 5 ranked foe in Washington, beats a top 15, Tennessee team. They lost to a 23rd ranked Northwestern club and an unranked Wisconsin club. But building, what would you call that? Building confidence, maybe? I mean, they're just learning to win against really good programs. And nothing more exciting than to see this ball club wrap up their trip down to that St. Pete Clearwater Elite Invitational with a 2-0 win over Washington yesterday. A phenomenal performance, and you probably should just go ahead and get used to saying those words together. When you talk about Valerie Cagle in the circle yesterday, she pitched all 7 innings, gave up 4 hits and no runs. And then at the plate in the bottom of the 6th inning, when Clemson needed some insurance, Valerie Cagle went yard to extend the lead and give herself a little bit of leeway heading into the top of the 7th inning, where she would eventually get 3 outs. I know that Washington threatened a little bit in the bottom of the 7th, or excuse me, in the top of the 7th. But nonetheless, Clemson comes away with a victory. Here's John Rittman talking about the Tiger softball team and their first ever top 5 win in program history.
Hey, great weekend for the Tigers. This is a very prestigious tournament, a lot of ranked teams. We knew going in that every game was going to be a big game for us, and just really proud of the way our team competed all weekend. Obviously, we got off to a great start, beat Texas Tech, beat Tennessee, and then we had a rough day at the office yesterday. Faced an All-American pitcher who shut down our offense and took it to Brooke a little bit, and then had a very tough loss last night to Wisconsin. And we had a lead in the game and then lost the lead late, and just a tough loss to take, and never know how the team's going to respond the next day. And certainly today we had a great game. Pitching performance from Valerie Cagle, awesome. Some big hits, Gombardi getting on base, Maddie Moore running for, Aaliyah Logale with a big hit to drive in the run, and then, of course, Valerie to give us some insurance late with a big home run. Love the way our team competed, the way they came back and fought. A lot of tough teams this weekend, so we definitely made some growth. The good news is we haven't played our best softball yet. Our offense hadn't clicked, and we're getting it together. We're getting closer. Looking forward to a midweek game at Charlotte this week, and then our home opener. So hopefully you all can make it out to see us play on Friday. Go Tigers.
That again, Clemson softball coach John Rittman. And I know that a lot of you want to be able to go see the Clemson Tiger softball team play. But from what I understand, and again, I could get a press credential to go watch this Clemson Tiger softball team, but getting in the arena over at McWhorter Stadium to watch the Tigers might be a little tough from what I understand. And so I don't know if tickets are readily available at the venue. I'll tell you what we'll try to do. We'll reach out to John Rittman and hopefully get him on the program before their series coming up this weekend. They got a matchup on the road at Charlotte on Wednesday, a 4:00 start on ESPN Plus, as they'll take on the 49ers. And then Friday, they'll begin a 4-game home series at the Clemson Classic, where on 2:30 Friday afternoon, they will take on Boston University. At 3:00 on Saturday, they'll take on St. Francis. And then at 5:00 on Saturday, they'll face Akron. So they'll go back-to-back games on Saturday. And then on Sunday, it'll be the top 2 teams out of those 4 facing off. And then the 3 and 4 teams out of those 3 teams in a little what's the right word here? A little round robin. There we go. And so a little bit of a tournament style play for the Tigers at home in the Clemson Classic. And again, that will take place beginning Friday with a matchup against Boston University. at 2:30 p.m. 803-450-0086. I can't believe 1 hour's in the books, man. I don't know where it goes. Sometimes time's fun when you're having flies. Strike that and reverse it. Time flies when you're having fun. With a quick break, we'll be back with William Qualkenbush right after this.
It's time for Clemson Sports Talk with Lawton Swan.
Just call me Swanee.
Tiger style. Tiger style.
It is hour number 2. That's Drive Time right here on the show that shakes the Southland. Clemson Sports Talk. Lawton Swan with you on a Monday afternoon. William Qualkenbush steps into the arena to hang out with us today. Qualk, hope you're well, man. What's up?
Oh, just a little bit of detox. It was a busy weekend. That first crossover weekend's always a little busy on the radio side, but enjoyed it very much and excited to be with you, Swanee. How are you?
Man, I'm good. I tell you, just it's one of the things about this time of the year. You kind of mentioned it. I mean, if it's not men's basketball, it's softball. If it's not softball, it's baseball. If it's not baseball, it's women's basketball. I mean, there's a lot going on in the spring.
Yeah, there really is, and I'm always reminded of that. When basketball season can be a little bit of a grind because it's 2 games a week, and especially when you follow both programs, men's and women's, you're talking like 4 games a week, so you're just going all the time. It's very different from the rhythm of football season. But then when you start throwing baseball and softball into the mix, man, it's like you're talking 6, 7 games a week. You're talking, multiple. I mean, I looked at the stat broadcast Clemson page on Saturday, and I think there were like 7 events. It was unbelievable how much stuff was going on. And, it's a real blessing to get to do what we do, but it doesn't mean we don't get tired.
Well, I'll tell you what, one thing I know Clemson Tiger basketball fans are tired of is losses. And now with 6 in a row following a loss to a Louisville team that had lost 7 straight. But, maybe the bigger storyline, PJ Hall, obviously getting hurt in the first minute and a half of that ball game. And then today's update from Brad Brownell, essentially still kind of leaving it, kind of out there. We don't really know what's going to happen with PJ moving forward this year. But, man, what a tough break for Clemson just from the standpoint of you were already down Hunter Tyson. And then in what has felt like kind of a must-win point of the season, you lose your star in a ball game against Louisville.
Yeah, and look, I will say it this way. It has felt like they were a little bit playing with fire with PJ anyway, just simply because of the nature of his injury, what he's been trying to work through all year long. PJ, to me, has done a remarkable job of maintaining a high level of play, despite having an obvious injury that has bothered him to the point that he's not really practicing. Hasn't really practiced for weeks and months at this point. He's wearing a boot all the time, and now he's gone through some X-rays. The X-ray's negative, and so it depends on his pain tolerance and really how his foot's going to hold up. I mean, look, he's been playing with a bad foot for a while. You got to think there's a little bit of wear and tear on the other one, right? I mean, I don't have any information on that, but that just feels like a little bit of conventional wisdom there. And then it also, you start factoring in, potentially the future of the team, his future personally. Like, how does that, how does that stuff go? How does that stuff jive with one another? And so it's going to be interesting to see how they deploy him moving forward. They're still, I think, a team that can win all their games remaining without PJ. You look at Wake at home, at Boston College, Georgia taking home, Virginia taking home. All 4 winnable games. Without PJ, this team lacks a lot, and they already lacked a good bit without Hunter Tyson. They just don't have anybody that can really fill in. I mean, you look at the numbers from Saturday.
Oof.
I mean, Ben Middlebrooks gives you 14 minutes. Nas Bohannon gives you 34 minutes off the bench, gives you 11 points. Alamir Dawes gives you 7 rebounds. You had some good production there. David Collins, only 4 points, but he did give you 10 rebounds, 4 assists there. Ian Shefflin was not great. He's certainly played better. You wonder where the points are going to come from without PJ in the game. They've run everything through him recently, and he's been, all ACC caliber for most of the year. In my opinion, he's been a top 5 player in the league the last couple of weeks. If he's out for any discernible period of time, this team really lacks an identity on both ends of the floor. If he's not, if he's continuing to play through, then we've got to continue to, I think, appreciate and show appreciation. I know fans do appreciate it, but you got to continue to show that to him, because that's really a sacrificial thing to go out there and continue to play when you really could make the choice to go ahead and shut it down for the season. He's not as yet done that, and we'll see if this injury is bad enough, this new aggravation, if it's bad enough to get him to that point, or if he's going to continue to try to fight through it.
Yeah, I think it's also of note that even minus PJ Hall, again, you prepare for these games assuming he's going to be there. Then he's out, and all of a sudden you've got to kind of regroup, if you will. And yet with 5 minutes to go in that ball game, I mean, they're still in it. So as poorly as I thought David Collins played offensively, I mean, I know he had the 4 assists, as you mentioned, but yeah, I mean, they were still in that game, which Brad Brownell has got to be scratching his head at times, because there's that old saying, you can't win for losing. And boy, it sure feels that way with this team right now.
Well, they're falling into, and it looks different, but they're falling into a similar trap to the team from last year, which is late in the season when things got tough. They didn't have anybody who was capable of getting to the basket. That used to be David Collins. Really, since his suspension, he has been, I would say, a shell of himself offensively. Some of that is maybe natural. Some of it he's got to work through. I mean, you look at free throw attempts in the last couple games. Have they not been there? I mean, particularly the Notre Dame game and the Louisville game, the Florida State game, there were a lot of fouls, and you saw Clemson had a really good chance to win at Florida State when they are aggressive and get to the line. Duke game, they didn't get to the line a ton. The Georgia Tech loss on the road, they didn't get to the line a ton. North Carolina game, they did a little better job, but this is a team that now needs Alamir Dawes to get to the line, and Alamir Dawes is basically not going inside the 3-point line. You need Nick Honor to get to the line. Nick Honor's not going inside the 3-point line. You need some of your young bigs to get to the line, but they're not savvy enough and able to use their bodies enough to draw that contact. To me, that's the equalizer for this team. How do you continue to score points with PJ Hall? Maybe limited. It comes down to free throws. It really does. And they didn't shoot nearly enough on Saturday. I mean, look, they shot free throws on 7% of their possessions on Saturday. They shot 4 free throws. That is not going to get it done. You're not going to win a game on the road when you're minus 10 on free throws. And it was a cleanly played game. I'll say that. I mean, look, Clemson's whistled for 16 fouls and Louisville's whistled for 10. It's not like the game was super duper competitive, but you got to make the game physical to some degree. You got to take the fight to them to some degree, particularly if you're not going to win a pretty game on the outside because you don't have enough firepower. That's why I think this team's fallen short here recently. And that's why you lose a game where you made 9 threes and you did some pretty good stuff offensively, because when it came down to it, you couldn't get downhill and get a bucket or get fouled and go to the line.
He's on Twitter at Qualt Talk. You can hear him each and every day. Out of Bounds with Qualk and Kelly, 105.5 The Roar. In the upstate, you can also hear him on some of the baseball calls this weekend as well. And Qualk for Clemson, you get the shutout, the opener. Then you're down early in game 2 and then score 19 unanswered. That's unusual. And then you win in 10 on Sunday, but 3-0 after the weekend series against Indiana. What were some of your initial takeaways to the first weekend series for this Clemson Tiger baseball team?
Well, my initial takeaway is that I think Indiana will end up being a more competitive team than they showed this weekend later in the year. They had a lot of transfers and youngsters that were playing. I think their top 4 hitters in the lineup were all transfers. They put 6 guys in the Major League Baseball draft. It's a team with some talent. You could tell that, but they hadn't played together. And Clemson, I thought the new guys did a really good job. You've got Ben Blackwell at shortstop, who's one of the stars of the weekend. I'm counting Cooper Ingle. He had 11 at-bats last year. We heard all kinds of good stuff. He had COVID and injuries and everything else. And he ended up showing us why for 2 years the coaches have been very, very high on him. Mac England, again, was superb. I think the bullpen was mostly good over the weekend. I think it's a little bit troubling that, the most dominant pitcher in your camp, Ryan Ammons, really didn't look good at all this weekend. And you had a bunch of guys step up. Look, they've got Billy Barlow going tomorrow. I think they're going to use the midweek games to see if they can push some of those older guys with some youth. And look, last year they started the season with 2 freshmen, and Olenchuk and Grice in the rotation, and that did not work very well. And then they didn't have a ton behind them. They, Askew got some run in there when he got healthy, but they're doing the opposite now. Where to me, Clayton and Hoffman, they could stick. I mean, I think those guys are really talented, but there's a reason they've been primarily bullpen pieces, and I think you saw some of that this weekend. If you got freshmen who can outpitch them in the midweek, can outpitch them, when they come in and they're stead over the weekend, I think doing it backwards and starting with, older players and then transferring some of that responsibility to your younger guys once they have gotten their feet wet a little bit, I think that'll help the pitching staff. The other thing they got to fix is the strikeouts. They have 41 strikeouts. I think they had 32 or 33 the first 2 games, 17 on opening day. I know they won 9-0, but that's too many strikeouts. You're striking out 27% of your plate appearances. They did walk 36 times and were hit by 8 pitches. So one thing that it's very easy to do, particularly if you're a team that's going to strike out a bunch, is to help the other team by swinging the pitches out of the zone. They really didn't do a ton of that throughout the weekend. They did in spots, but a lot of it through the weekend was just getting beat by good pitches, either, right on the edges of the strike zone or something like that. You give the pitcher a little bit of credit. I see some signs that this team has a little bit of that DNA from the squad 2 years ago that I thought was going to make a run. They scratched and clawed and found ways offensively at times this weekend. Different guys stepped up, as I talked about. You had a bunch of guys who got on base a ton. Chad Ferry walked 7 times. Max Wagner's walked a bunch. Defensively, I thought this looked like a good team. They didn't get a chance to make a ton of fine plays. I thought infield defense really was outstanding in the series. Catching, I thought, was improved over what we saw last year with Hackenberg and French, with Engel catching 2 games and French on opening day. So you saw some good signs. Now they've got to continue it on, and I'm really interested to see what type of approach Monty Lee and his staff take to these midweeks because, Kelly Granley, my co-host, asked me today, she said, is this team going to be undefeated when they go to South Carolina? And I said, I'm going to need to see them in a midweek game first because I need to know that this is a team – that those are very different beasts than winning on the weekend. I want to know what this team's philosophy is for midweeks, and I want to know that they can go into those games and execute that plan.
What I love hearing you say that is that's something I've talked about for several years now with this club is how key these midweek games are. And it's not just that it's a midweek game, right? A lot of this midweek talent, like College of Charleston tomorrow, USC Upstate next week, Coastal Carolina later in the season. I mean, these are tough teams, and how you manage these games could determine postseason play for you.
It's a tricky balance because you don't want to use guys that you're going to need through the weekend. With that said, early in the year, you might see a team like College of Charleston throw some better arms. During conference play, you have midweek games. Let's say Coastal on March 22nd, Winthrop March 23rd. I'm just picking a couple games at random. That's in the middle of their conference season. They may throw off or try to go, they try to go with an opener and make it a bullpen game or something like that. You don't know what these teams are going to bring in either. So it's always a little bit tricky. It's always a little bit different. And it's gotten more that way since using the opener and going shorter stints has become more in vogue. If you remember Monty Lee's first team, Tyler Jackson came in and was a horse in the middle of the week. And basically, I mean, he pitched a little bit on the weekend, but he was the guy that gave the ball to give you 5, 6, 7 innings every single midweek start, at least that 4th game of the week. And then was able to pitch in a regional and pitch great that the Tigers hosted, that ACC championship team. You don't see that a lot anymore. You see a lot of teams just kind of Johnny Holstapping and putting it together and getting guys a couple innings of work. I'm going to need to see that before I start putting projections on this team moving forward for the season.
I'm with you 100%. Again, he's on Twitter at Qualk Talk. Okay, Qualk, final couple of notes for you here. First off, I do want to talk about John Rittman and the softball team. I know this weekend they lost their matchups against Northwestern and Wisconsin in that day where they played. I think that was Saturday, playing against the 2 Big Ten teams. But victories over a top 15 Tennessee team and then a top 5 victory over the University of Washington, the Huskies. I got to say, It is as fast of a start that I can remember any program. And again, those victories don't mean that they're going to go on and have another really good year. Something they could fall apart. But boy, it is a fun program to watch. And I think it is destined for big things.
Yeah, they're fun to watch. And look, it's not, we had John Ritter on our show today. He said it's not the Valerie Cagle show anymore because Millie Thompson pitched great against Wisconsin in that loss. You had Reagan Spencer and Brooke McCubbin who came in as well. And to me, that makes them really dangerous. When you've got players like that, you got 4 pitchers who are all sub-2 ERAs right now after 2 high-level tournaments. I mean, the St. Pete Clearwater Elite Invitational is as good as it gets, okay? The tournament they were just in is as good as it gets. They faced 3 opponents who are ranked in at least one of the main polls. And as you said, Washington's ranked 5th in the country. They faced Washington's ace, Gabby Plain, and hit her. She's a really, really good pitcher. And I love that Valerie Cagle, who didn't throw great against Tennessee, she didn't throw great in relief against Wisconsin. She did throw great in the capper on Sunday morning against Washington. And that's a tough thing to do because she was busy offensively in the whole weekend, but she was able to save her best for last. I agree with you about the fast start. Here's what I'll say, too. They know why they didn't host last season. It's because of the week non-conference, not really their fault because COVID canceled a lot of their neutral site, early season tournament type games like we've seen in the last few days. They weren't able to participate in those because of COVID. And the ACC didn't help them because they didn't face Florida State. And, that it just seemed like their numbers were a little bit out of whack. They fixed that this year. They've scheduled this way on purpose. They want to test themselves early. And they want to give the committee something to look at when you're talking about strength of schedule, you're talking about quality wins on Selection Sunday. If things go the way, or Selection Monday rather, if things go the way that they plan moving forward, then this is a team who will earn a top 16 seed if they play to their capability because of situations like this weekend where you face 3 ranked teams, and you beat 2 of them, and you made quick work of Texas Tech, who's a team that's probably lower part but still a fairly quality opponent. And then, of course, you got the Wisconsin game. Could have gone either way there, but a team that's perfectly capable in their own right and knocked off a couple ranked teams this weekend as well.
It is the toughest ticket in Tiger Town right now, no doubt about it. Almost every game sold out for the softball team and Coach John Rittman. Final thing, Qualk, the tournament, the ACC TV show on the ACC network about the history of the Atlantic Coast Conference. I watched about a show and a half, so I haven't gotten too far into it. Have you started it? And if you have, what have been your early impressions?
I have not started it. I have them all DVR'd, so I've got to work through those. I just haven't gotten a chance to do that yet. Here's my big picture thought on it, okay? I may have talked about this with you. You do documentaries on things that have passed. I think we did talk about this last week or a couple weeks ago. You do documentaries on history. The AC tournament's still going, but it's like tacit acknowledgement by the league that at the very least the golden age of the tournament's passed. That's not news to anybody, but it feels like with Mike Krzyzewski leaving, Roy Williams leaving, Maryland's not in the picture anymore, like the vestiges of yesteryear when the ACC tournament was a standalone hot ticket, as you said about Clemson softball, the toughest ticket in town, the hottest ticket in town. I think they're gone. And we're going to still have them, but we're going to remember fondly the tournament as it used to be. We're not going to remember fondly these tournaments, in the present or the very distant past, or the very recent past. That's not what this documentary is about. This documentary is about telling people who don't see what the big deal is, why there are a lot of people who still hold the ACC tournament in high regard.
Well said, my friend. He's on Twitter at Qualt Talk. Follow him again every day, noon until 3 o'clock. Out of Bounds with Qualk and Kelly. He's William Qualkenbush. Qualt, buddy, we'll talk to you next Monday.
Thanks, Swanee. Appreciate it, my man.
There he is, William Qualkenbush, here on the show that shakes the Southland, Clemson Sports Talk. Again, he's on Twitter at Qualt Talk. 803-450-0086. Text line, phone line. Again, be a part of the program anytime, any place, anywhere. Did see we got a message a little bit earlier from a Double O who chimes into the program. He says, Swanee Brad Brownell needs you. He says, dress out, hit some threes. Then the team would be great. There goes my hero. Watch him as he goes. Double O says, appreciate it, Double O. By the way, some news out of Georgia as well today. Offensive line coach Matt Luke, the former head coach at Ole Miss, according to reports, will be stepping down in Athens, Georgia. With a quick break, we come back. I'll talk to you a little bit about the tournament, that show I just mentioned with Qualt, right after this. Back at it on a Monday, Clemson Sports Talk. Do you follow us on Twitter? Go ahead and do it at Clemson Sports. We're closing in on 24,000 followers. Ridiculous, I know. Make sure you do that, and also make sure you head over to our website. Put the .com on it. Doggone it. That's ClemsonSportsTalk.com. So over the weekend, I had a chance to start watching the ACC's or the ACC Network's show called The Tournament. And I don't know how many of you have been keeping up with this. As a matter of fact, I can't even remember where I first heard about it, to be honest with you. But it's essentially a look back at the history of the ACC tournament. And there are so many things that I'm learning. And it starts off with the forming of the conference back in 1953 through the ACC tournament being played at Reynolds Coliseum when Everett Case was the head coach at NC State and convinced the supporters of North Carolina State University to build a larger stadium that ultimately, and they were going to build Reynolds Coliseum to basically kind of mimic Cameron Indoor, which is going to be kind of quaint and small. And then they were like, no. Everett Case was like, no. We want bigger is better. And he felt like they would be able to host the ACC tournament, which they did. And again, just a very, very interesting look at the league. Some great players I had never heard of. Even hearing stories from a guy like Dave Odom, the former Wake Forest and South Carolina head coach, who was saying, telling some stories about some games and saying, look, I'm laying there in bed. I've got my radio just turned up enough so my mom can't hear that it's on. I'm rooting for North Carolina to win this game and this, that, and the other. And getting into the era, of some of the other legendary coaches in the league's history, including Wake Forest Bones McKinney and Duke coach Vic Bubas and Frank McGuire at North Carolina. And one of the things that I'm trying to replace, I think what happened was when Everett Case got the job at NC State, he was either from Indiana or just had ties back to the state of Indiana where basketball was huge. And so he goes out and brings in like 7 out of the 10 players on the team, I think, were from the state of Indiana. And one of those guys at one point along the way, if my memory serves me correctly, was Bones McKinney, who would go on to play, I think, I want to say that after he was at NC State, he ended up leaving for, I don't know if there was I know it would have been after World War II or maybe whatever it was. I think McKinney ended up playing at NC State and North Carolina. And honestly, I don't feel like looking back to tell you. You can just watch the show. But he was kind of like this preacher. He was a preacher and very polished and kind of wild and crazy. It went to the point of like buckling himself up in a seatbelt because the officials were fussing about him being up. And so to kind of mock them the next time he had that same crew, he had a seatbelt put in on the bench. But yeah, just some really, really cool stories. I even saw a Clemson player in the 1957 ACC tournament. I believe Clemson was playing in the championship game that season. And I asked Tim Beret about it because this guy looked like he was wearing a football helmet. Like it actually looked more like he was wearing a basketball on his head. Like it looked like a basketball player with a basketball on his head. And I texted Tim Beret while I was watching it, and I was like, Tim, who is this guy? I gotta hear more about it. And he said that is Gene C. And Tim believes he was playing with a broken jaw. Now, Gene, I believe, passed away back in November of 2021. But yeah, what a great, if you don't have the ACC network, I'm not really sure how you would access this show. If you do have it, put it in your DVR. If you got YouTube TV, set it up to record and watch it. It's really good. And I've really learned a lot. And I've only watched an episode and a half. I mean, Dean Smith is just now getting into the league. Like, Dean Smith has been hired as an assistant coach for Frank McGuire. And the funny story about that, if you listen to some of I forget who the star player was for North Carolina at that time, but North Carolina in 1957, I hope my years are right here, goes undefeated. They go undefeated. They win the national title. And apparently one of the assistant coaches for North Carolina, for whatever reason, the pressure of the season, the pressure to succeed, starts drinking. And apparently it had a bad history of drinking, whether it was alcoholism or not. I'm not quite certain. I don't remember if it really pointed that out. But Frank McGuire felt like he needed to get a new assistant coach. And he gets told of a guy named Dean Smith, who is a young coach. I want to say Dean Smith. Now, I will check this. I'll throw this in the Google machine. Yeah, he was a head coach or an assistant coach, at Air Force. So Frank McGuire hears about Dean Smith at Air Force and brings him in. And then, of course, it wouldn't be much longer after that. I think 1961, just a few short years later, Dean Smith takes over at North Carolina and is the head coach there until he retired in 1997. So think about that. The league just gets formed. North Carolina quickly wins a national title in 57. They go undefeated in doing so. And this was a time when you had to win the Atlantic Coast Conference tournament to get into postseason play. It didn't even matter what you did in the regular season. And then in 1957, Frank McGuire leads North Carolina to a national title. And the following year, he brings in Dean Smith. And then Smith goes on to become the head coach just a couple of years later and would, of course, win, 2 national titles there as the head coach at North Carolina. We'll hit a quick break. It is a great show. Again, the the tournament, the history of the ACC tournament on the ACC network. We'll hit a break. Stay with us. Clemson Sports Talk on a Monday. We were talking about the tournament, the history of the ACC. One of the things I haven't really gotten to yet, but was mentioned Dean Smith before the break. I am intrigued for our Gamecock friends peeking over the fence. I mean, I know you guys are out there for sure. But let's not forget this show is also for you guys, because Frank McGuire would leave North Carolina, go to the Philadelphia Warriors for 2 seasons, and then return to college basketball in 1964 with the South Carolina Gamecocks, and would win a couple of, or at least win one ACC championship at South Carolina in 1971. So this is not just a show that Tiger fans should be tuning into. If you are quite frankly, Carolina's got more success in the ACC tournament than Clemson does. The Tigers don't have an ACC tournament victory, or a tournament win. But if you want to have the opportunity to learn a little more about the South Carolina Gamecocks and their time in the ACC in men's basketball, especially under legendary head coach Frank McGuire, this is going to be the show for you. And so McGuire, of course, was at South Carolina, until 1980? I think he coached there till 1980. Of course, the Gamecocks would leave the ACC during his tenure there in 1972. But that gives you, around 10 years, a decade or so on this ACC tournament show that will feature some moments from the South Carolina Gamecocks, and additionally, also will feature Frank McGuire. So not just a show for Tigers. This was for Gamecocks, Yellow Jackets, Seminoles. Technically, you'll be coming up later as the league expands. But yeah, I mean, it was really, really interesting to kind of see this take place. And the thing about it was the ACC tournament was, it really was a byproduct of the power, or I should say the teams that wanted to play power football coming together and deciding, hey, we're going to make this league. And ultimately, Virginia would be the 7th team to join in. Of course, later on, South Carolina would leave, Georgia Tech would enter, and then, of course, Florida State would come in, and then the expansion that we saw in recent years with the additions of Miami and Virginia Tech and Syracuse, et cetera. But, yeah, I mean, it is a great look at the history of the ACC. If you're a South Carolina fan, it does have some good Gamecock references in there as well. If you're a Clemson fan, there's going to be a lot of pain, I am sure, because that's all college basketball seemingly has been. But it gave me a level of hope, I guess, maybe the term I'm looking for here, that we might at one point get something like this for football in the Atlantic Coast Conference. And there was a couple of old videos like Clemson playing Miami in the Orange Bowl back in, 50-something. Anyway, I just, what year was that? I can't remember off the top of my head. Timberay, channeling my inner Timberay. Hello. That's why, look, Timberay's Clemson Google, I'm Clemson Bing. I can't quite remember. I want to say it was 1951. I'm just not certain. But that's kind of my gut. Let's see if I can find the year on that. 1952 looks like it may have been. The 52, nope, that's the Gator Bowl. Clemson in Miami. But this was definitely an Orange Bowl between Clemson and Miami, I think was what they were showing. Anyway, that was one of the things that they're kind of highlighting at one point was how these schools, these 1950 Orange Bowl, 51 Orange Bowl. I was right. 51 Orange Bowl. Let's go. Let's go. Can I get 1,000 points for that? I don't know what I'll spend them on. That Clemson team went 9-0-1 in the SoCon and defeated Miami in the 1951 Orange Bowl. Let's go. 15-14. Swanee, bonus points, 1,000. Spend them as you will. I get into all of that, or at least bring that up because, I mean, that was part of the catalyst to this change that ended up being because of the forward thinking of some individuals, the preeminent college basketball league and showcase, because they were showing the ACC tournament on television and ended up showing the national championship game in 57 between North Carolina and Kansas on national TV. You know who else is you know who I need to get up with? Mark Packer. His dad, Billy, who played at Wake Forest and was very well known around the sport of college basketball for his coverage of the sport as an analyst, is on this show quite a bit and would love to dig into Pac-Man's memories of the ACC tournament growing up, and also just the impact that it and the TV coverage had on the league as a whole. 803-450-0086. That is your text line. That is your phone line. It is the show that shakes the Southland Clemson Sports Talk. We are here each and every afternoon from 4 until 6. But if you want to engage with us and interact with us more frequently, here's what you can do. Our website, put the .com on it, doggone it, ClemsonSportsTalk.com. Full coverage of your Clemson Tigers. Forum tree to post in. Would love to help you. Would love for you to help us grow and bring more people in. Just $63.17 gets you 1 year of coverage of your Tigers. That's right, Gamecocks. I said it live on the airways in the Midlands of South Carolina. 63-17 for 1 year of coverage. We'll hit a quick break. We'll come back. We will put a big old bow on the Monday edition of this show that shakes the Southland. Again, on Twitter at Clemson Sports. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. The best way to get there, tinyurl.com/Clemson Sports TV. That'll get you there. We'll hit a break. We'll come back and wrap up the show next.
What have you done for me lately? It's a fair question. Just don't lose sight of the bigger picture. Don't forget history. Lucky for us at Clemson, the answer to the questions, what have you done for me lately, and what have you done always, are the same. We win.
Final segment of the show, Clemson Sports Talk, Lawton Swan. We did not even talk about the NBA, not as if you guys care a whole lot about the NBA, but man, the performance that was put on last night by Steph Curry. And again, I get it. There's not a lot of defense in the NBA All-Star game. I mean, nobody's ever claimed that there has been great defense played in the NBA All-Star game. But shout out to Steph Curry. I mean, the guy was on fire. 16 3-pointers in a 50-point performance as Team LeBron beats Team Durant 163-160. I think it was LeBron James after the game that said Steph Curry is from another planet. And when you look at 17 of 30 from the field for Steph Curry, but he hit more three-pointers, 16, than every other starter in the ball game. And that includes Joel Embiid, who was 5 of 8 from downtown and scored 36 points in the game. Steph Curry was the MVP, 16 of 27 from deep, 50 points. Giannis scored 30. I mentioned the other day getting a chance to see Ja Morant play. He only played 18 minutes and scored 6 points in the ball game. Steph Curry shot several balls where he turned around and faced the other direction before they went in. Just a monster performance for Steph Curry, who can make it look too easy at times. There is no doubt about that fact. Steph Curry makes it look easy. And like I said, I think LeBron James said, he's like he's from another planet. And I really got to thinking about this for a minute. Just a hypothetical. I'm in this kick right now. I've been watching Quantum Leap. The old TV show, Scott Bakula, or however you say his name. And I had not been in, I've never watched that show before. I mean, I remember it when I was a kid, but somehow it just kind of, I always like space-time continuum kind of stuff. Like I'm watching the show and I'm thinking, man, Doc Brown would not like Scott Bakula's character, whatever his name is, Sam Beckwith or whatever in the show. Would not like him at all because he's always messing with the, people's lives and stuff. Anyway, the final episode of season 2 and the first 2 episodes of season 3 in that show are some of the best TV in terms of storyline and surprises that I can remember. So if you ever get a chance to check those out, do so. So while I'm watching that, I'm always thinking about weird things because you can't help it. It'd be like if you were watching the Twilight Zone or something like that while you're hearing quotes from LeBron James. I thought to myself, wouldn't it be, I just kind of chuckled, like, wouldn't it be something if Steph Curry were actually from another planet. Like you come to find out Steph Curry's not actually human. Like we say it so loosely. We use that phrase so loosely, like, oh man, he's from another planet. I just kind of chuckled like, man, what if he was? How would we feel about him? It's kind of like my son. It's kind of like my son. He's playing soccer the other weekend, and they were up. Oh man, they were up 4-0, I think. And my son typically plays on the back line for providing some defense, and the coach put him up forward to play offense, and he scored a goal immediately, 5-0. Scored another goal immediately, 6-0. And then he almost got in a 7th and nearly an 8th goal, and which would have just been. I mean, listen, he's been on the side of being humiliated before by a team. There was a team down in Charleston that beat the brakes off of him a couple of years ago. But we were getting in the car to go home, and because after they were up by 5 or 6 or whatever, I'm like, Mace, call off the dogs. Like, I'm like, Mace, y'all pass the ball around. Now, I'm not the coach, but I also understand that everybody out there's got feelings. You don't want to drive a kid into the ground. Anyway, so after the game, we're driving home, and he says to me, Dad, it was going to be the first time I ever scored 3 goals in a ball game. And like, I get it. I get that's important. And I told him, I said, listen, son, I said, if you went out and played played soccer against some 7 or 8-year-olds and you scored 10 goals, is that an accomplishment? I was like, and I know these kids are your age, but once you've got them down, there's no need to just pour it on for the sake of your glory. And I said, look, man, if you win a 4-2 game and you put in the third goal of your third goal of the match to win 4-2 against a team that's your equal, hey, man, drive it in the back of the net. Go for it. But, those lessons, I think, are the things that I want my son to learn, when it's time to pour it on and when it's time to call off the dogs. And, I just kind of watching Steph Curry and doing his thing. I thought, man alive, call off the dog, Steph. 16 threes, 50 points. Even if you hate the NBA, just go watch some of the shots. Some of them are just from ridiculous length, too. He's not exactly, quote, toeing the three-point line. We got to get out of here. We will be back tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Until then, as always, y'all take care now and go Tigers.